Sir, we'll arrive at the Shilla Hotel in exactly 12 minutes. The media is already positioned, and Minister Park's daughter is waiting at the altar. Kang Tae-Hyun barely registered his assistant's words from the leather seat of his armored Bentley. Through the bulletproof windows, Seoul's elite-lined streets blurred past as his wedding convoy commanded the road. Korea's most feared Alpha CEO sat motionless in his custom Tom Ford tuxedo, every inch the perfect chaebol heir about to secure the merger of the century through marriage. But beneath his controlled exterior, 3 years of searching had left him hollow. 3 years since Seo Min-Jun vanished without a trace, taking Tae-Hyun's heart and sanity with him. Traffic slowed to a crawl at the Gangnam intersection. That's when the scent hit him. Sweet jasmine and warm vanilla. The omega pheromones that had haunted his dreams every night for 3 years. Impossible. His head snapped toward the crosswalk, and his world tilted off its axis. There, waiting for the light to change, stood Min-Jun. Still beautiful, still perfect, but thinner than before. And beside him, 3 identical toddlers. Dark hair, sharp jawlines, unmistakably alpha features. His features. The boys turned slightly, and even through the tinted glass, Tae-Hyun could sense their dominant pheromones, faint but undeniably alpha. His blood. His children. The children he never knew existed. Stop the car. His voice came out as a growl. Sir, stop the car. The convoy lurched to a halt, causing chaos in the intersection. Security radios crackled with confusion. Behind them, Korea's most powerful families waited at a wedding that would never happen. Because Kang Tae-Hyun, the man who controlled empires, had just discovered he was a father. And nothing, not his family's dynasty, not the merger worth billions, not his carefully constructed life, mattered more than the Omega and 3 alpha pups standing 20 feet away. Before I tell you what happened to her, subscribe to Heartverse BL, and comment where you're watching from. Sir, you cannot exit the vehicle. The security perimeter. Get out of my way. Tae-Hyun's alpha voice cut through his head of security like a blade. The door handle clicked as he overrode the locks, ignoring the frantic protests erupting around him. Mr. Kang, the media will see. Your wedding. But Tae-Hyun was already stepping onto Seoul's asphalt, his polished Oxford shoes hitting the ground as car horns blared and traffic backed up for blocks. His security team scrambled from their vehicles, speaking rapidly into earpieces, but nothing could stop him now. The scent grew stronger with each step. Sweet jasmine mixed with something new, the clean, innocent smell of children. His children. Min-Jun's head turned at the commotion, and their eyes met across the crosswalk. The Omega's face drained of color, his protective arms instinctively pulling the 3 toddlers closer. The boys looked up with curious dark eyes, Tae-Hyun's eyes, completely unaware that their world was about to shatter and rebuild in the span of minutes. Min-Jun. The name fell from Tae-Hyun's lips like a prayer and a curse. The Omega took a step back, his voice barely a whisper. Tae-Hyun, you're supposed to be, your wedding. 3 years. Tae-Hyun's voice was raw, dangerous. 3 years I searched for you. 3 years wondering if you were dead in some alley because of what I did wrong. He gestured toward the triplets, who were now staring at him with wide eyes. Were you going to tell me I'm a father, or were you planning to disappear again? Min-Jun's Omega instincts were in overdrive, caught between submission and fierce maternal protection. You don't understand. I couldn't, they made me. Who made you? The alpha in Tae-Hyun's voice commanded an answer, and several passing pedestrians instinctively stepped away from the intensity radiating from him. Your grandmother. Min-Jun's words were barely audible. She said you never wanted an Omega mate, that you were only with me because of the bond, and that it would destroy your reputation. She offered me money to leave and never contact you again. The revelation hit Tae-Hyun like a physical blow. His grandmother's voice echoed in his memory from 3 years ago. Asterisk, the Omega left Tae-Hyun. Perhaps it's for the best. These bonds fade with time. Asterisk. And you believed her? His voice cracked despite his alpha composure. I was pregnant and terrified. She showed me photos of you with Minister Park's daughter at business dinners. She said you were already engaged to someone suitable. Min-Jun's grip on the children tightened. What was I supposed to think? One of the triplets, the boldest, tugged on Min-Jun's sleeve. Appa, who is the scary man? The word Appa, father, from his son's mouth nearly brought Tae-Hyun to his knees. His phone buzzed incessantly with calls from the wedding venue, from business associates, from a bride who was probably realizing she'd been abandoned at the altar. I'm your other father, Tae-Hyun said quietly, crouching down to the boy's eye level. And I've been looking for you and your brothers and your appa for a very long time. Sir, we need to move. His security chief's urgent voice cut through the moment. Media helicopters are circling. Tae-Hyun stood slowly, his eyes never leaving Min-Jun's face. You're coming with me. All of you. Right now. Tae-Hyun, I canceled a wedding to find you. His voice held a finality that made even his security team pause. I'll cancel everything else too. Get in the car, Min-Jun. Please. Tae-Hyun's voice was softer now, but still held the unmistakable command of an alpha who wasn't used to being refused. Min-Jun hesitated, glancing between the luxury vehicle surrounded by security and his 3 confused sons. The boys don't understand what's happening. They've never been in a car like that. Then it's time they learned. Tae-Hyun opened the door himself, dismissing his flustered security team with a sharp gesture. We need privacy for this conversation. The ride to Tae-Hyun's penthouse was tense, filled only with the soft chatter of the triplets marveling at the leather seats and tinted windows. Min-Jun sat rigid against the far door, as if distance could protect him from the alpha's overwhelming presence and the conversation he knew was coming. Once they reached the safety of Tae-Hyun's private office, the children distracted by toys his assistant had hastily provided, Min-Jun finally began to speak. She came to my apartment the night after you left for that business trip to Japan. His voice was hollow, remembering. Your grandmother. She walked in like she owned the place, with 2 men in expensive suits behind her. Tae-Hyun's jaw clenched. What did she say? That an Omega had no place in the Kang family dynasty. That I was a temporary fascination for you. Something you'd outgrow once you realized what I could cost you. Min-Jun's hands trembled as he continued. She had photographs. You and Minister Park's daughter at charity galas, business dinners. She said you'd been courting her for months behind my back. The alpha's scent turned dangerous, filled with barely contained rage. Not at Min-Jun, at himself, at his family, at 3 years of lies that had stolen his mate and children from him. She offered me 10 million won to disappear. Min-Jun's laugh was bitter. More money than I'd ever seen in my life. But when I refused, that's when she really showed her claws. What did she threaten? Everything. The Omega's voice broke slightly. She said she'd destroy my family's small grocery store, have my father fired from his construction job, make sure no company in Seoul would hire me. She had files on everyone I cared about. Photos of my younger sister walking to university. Tae-Hyun's hands clenched into fists. She threatened your family. But that wasn't the worst part. Min-Jun's eyes filled with tears he'd held back for 3 years. She said if I stayed, if I tried to trap you with an Omega bond, she'd make sure everyone knew what I really was. She'd expose me to the media as a gold-digging Omega trying to manipulate Korea's most powerful alpha heir. The silence that followed was deafening. Through the glass walls, they could see the triplets playing, completely innocent of the conversation that was reshaping their world. So you ran. Tae-Hyun's voice was barely a whisper. I found out I was pregnant 2 days later. Min-Jun wiped his eyes roughly. 3 babies. I was 22, terrified and completely alone. I took her money and disappeared to Busan. Why didn't you contact me when they were born? Because I believed her. The admission seemed to physically pain him. I believed that you'd moved on, that you were relieved I was gone. Every time I saw your face in business magazines, you looked so successful. So perfect. Like you'd never needed me at all. Tae-Hyun moved closer, his alpha instincts screaming to comfort his distressed Omega. How did you survive? Part-time jobs at night when the boys slept. Cleaning offices, waiting tables at 24-hour diners. I told everyone they were my nephews when people asked about their father. Min-Jun's voice grew stronger, showing the fierce independence that had kept him and his children alive. I couldn't let anyone know they were alpha children. The questions would have led back to you. You've been hiding their nature? Suppressants. The word hung heavy between them. Mild ones to mask their developing pheromones. I told myself it was temporary, just until they were old enough to understand why we had to stay hidden. Tae-Hyun's world tilted again. His children, strong, healthy alpha children, had been forced into chemical suppression because of his family's cruelty. Min-Jun, what you've endured, what they put you through. I survived. The Omega's chin lifted with quiet pride. We all did. But Tae-Hyun, I can't go through that again. If your family still believes. My family, Tae-Hyun interrupted, his voice deadly quiet, will learn to accept what I choose. Or they'll learn what it means to lose me entirely. Before I tell you what happened to her, subscribe to Heartverse BL and comment where you're watching from. This is temporary, right? Min-Jun's voice was barely a whisper as they stepped into Tae-Hyun's penthouse. The triplets clustered around his legs like protective shields. Nothing about this is temporary. Tae-Hyun closed the door behind them, his alpha scent immediately filling the space as he tried to establish their safety. This is your home now. All of yours. The penthouse stretched before them like something from a magazine, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's skyline, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than Min-Jun's yearly income, and a silence so profound it felt oppressive after years of cramped apartments and city noise. The youngest triplet, barely 3 years old, pressed his face against Min-Jun's thigh. "Appa, why does everything smell scary?" Tae-Hyun's expression crumbled at his son's words. His protective instincts were running so high that his pheromones were overwhelming the children, marking territory and establishing dominance when what they needed was comfort. He forced himself to step back, to breathe, to remember that these weren't business rivals, they were his terrified family. "I'm sorry." He crouched down to the boy's eye level, consciously moderating his scent. "I know this is all very new. What are your names?" The boldest triplet, the one who had spoken at the crosswalk, lifted his chin in a gesture that was purely Kang family pride. "I'm Jaemin. That's Jaewon, and he's Jae-suk." He pointed to his brothers with the serious authority of the eldest by mere minutes. "Jae," Tae-Hyun repeated softly. "You kept my name." Min-Jun's arms tightened around the children. They deserved to know part of who they are, even if they couldn't know everything. "Appa, is this really our other father?" Jaewon asked, his voice small and uncertain. "The one from the pictures you hide under your mattress?" The admission hit both adults like a physical blow. Min-Jun's face flushed crimson, while Tae-Hyun's heart clenched painfully. His Omega had kept pictures, had told the children about him even while hiding. "Yes," Tae-Hyun managed, his voice rough. "I'm your father, and I've missed every single day of your lives because I didn't know you existed. Are you angry at Appa for hiding us?" Jae-suk, the quietest of the three, spoke up with the directness only children possessed. "No." The answer was immediate and absolute. "I'm angry at the people who made him feel like he had to hide you from me." Min-Jun moved restlessly around the living space, his Omega instincts on edge in the unfamiliar territory. Everything was too clean, too expensive, too much like the world that had rejected him 3 years ago. The boys need dinner. They're used to eating at 6, and it's already past 7. Their routine. "I'll order something." Tae-Hyun reached for his phone, but Min-Jun's sharp voice stopped him. "I can cook. I always cook for them. The kitchen is fully stocked. My housekeeper. I don't need your housekeeper." The words came out harsher than Min-Jun intended, and he immediately softened his tone for the children's sake. "I mean, I prefer to cook for them myself. They're picky eaters." Tae-Hyun watched his Omega move through the kitchen like a caged animal, opening and closing cabinets with increasing agitation. The space was immaculate but impersonal, nothing like the warm, lived-in kitchens Min-Jun was used to creating even in their smallest apartments. "I can't find anything," Min-Jun muttered, his composure finally cracking. "Where are the regular pans? The plastic plates? They'll break your dishes, Tae-Hyun. Everything here costs more than." "Hey!" Tae-Hyun approached slowly, as if Min-Jun were a spooked animal. "Breathe. We'll figure this out." "Will we?" Min-Jun's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Because this feels like playing house in someone else's life. Your life. And what happens when you get tired of us disrupting your perfect world? Look at me." Tae-Hyun's alpha voice was gentle but commanding. "I spent 3 years searching for you. 3 years building an empire I didn't want because I thought you'd left me. This penthouse, this perfect world you're talking about, it's been empty without you." Jaemin tugged on Tae-Hyun's expensive suit pants. "Alpha Appa, Omega Appa is sad. You should hug him. Hugs make sad go away." The simple wisdom from his 3-year-old son broke through Tae-Hyun's careful control. "Can I?" he asked Min-Jun softly. "Can I hold you?" Min-Jun's nod was barely perceptible, but it was enough. "Sir, Hansung Group just announced they're making a play for our shipping division. They're claiming breach of fiduciary duty to shareholders." Tae-Hyun's assistant burst into his home office, tablet in hand, as the sounds of his children playing echoed from the living room. "Let them try." Tae-Hyun didn't look up from the contract he was reviewing, but his voice carried the cold edge that made competitors think twice. "Schedule an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning." "That's not all, sir." Three major investors pulled out of the Busan development project this morning, citing concerns about leadership stability. And the financial networks are running stories about your secret family every hour. Through the glass walls of his office, Tae-Hyun could see Min-Jun helping Jae-won with a puzzle, while the other two boys built towers with expensive imported blocks. The domestic scene should have been peaceful, but his Omega's tense shoulders revealed the stress of living under constant media scrutiny. Mr. Kang. His assistant's voice drew his attention back to the corporate crisis unfolding around them. Draft a statement. Simple and direct. My personal life doesn't affect my business capabilities. Anyone who thinks otherwise is welcome to test that theory. Tae-Hyun's phone buzzed with another urgent call. And get me a meeting with Chairman Lim. If he wants to play games, he'll learn why I've never lost a corporate war. The next few days blurred into a relentless cycle of boardroom battles and media management. Tae-Hyun found himself fighting on multiple fronts, defending his company from vulture capitalists while trying to shield his family from the brutal spotlight of Korean business media. Appa, why are there men with cameras outside? Jae-min asked during breakfast, his small face pressed against the penthouse's reinforced windows. Min-Jun's hands stilled on the coffee cup he'd been warming between his palms. They're just interested in your Alpha Appa's work. But they're pointing the cameras at us, Jae-suk observed with the uncomfortable perceptiveness of a child who'd learned to read adult emotions too early. Tae-Hyun's jaw tightened as he watched a telephoto lens focus on his family through their supposedly private windows. The media had camped outside his building for 3 days, turning his children into unwilling celebrities and his Omega into a prisoner in their own home. That ends today. He pulled out his phone and speed-dialed his head of security. I want those photographers moved back 2 blocks minimum. Use whatever legal means necessary. Sir, they have a right to public sidewalks. They don't have a right to terrorize children. His alpha voice cut through the protest like a blade. Handle it. The real blow came during an emergency shareholders meeting that afternoon. Tae-Hyun stood before a room full of suits and skeptical expressions, his authority under direct challenge for the first time in his corporate career. The board has concerns, announced Director Yoon, a man who'd been circling like a shark since the wedding scandal broke. Your recent, personal revelations have created instability in our stock price and uncertainty about the company's future direction. My personal life has no bearing on quarterly profits or strategic planning. Tae-Hyun's voice remained level, but his alpha presence filled the boardroom like a warning. Doesn't it? Chairman Lim leaned forward, clearly enjoying the moment. You abandoned a merger worth 2 billion won for an Omega and some children. What happens the next time your emotions override your business judgment? The next time someone suggests my family is less important than corporate politics, Tae-Hyun replied quietly, they'll discover exactly how far I'm willing to go to protect what matters to me. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Tae-Hyun stood, his imposing height casting shadows across the conference table. And if anyone in this room thinks they can use my family as leverage against me, they're about to learn why I've built this empire from nothing. The room fell silent, the tension thick enough to cut. Several board members shifted uncomfortably, remembering exactly how ruthless Tae-Hyun could be when crossed. His phone buzzed with a text from Min-Jun. Asterisk J1 is asking why you look angry on TV. Come home when you can asterisk. The message was a stark reminder of what really mattered. Tae-Hyun looked around the boardroom one final time, his decision crystallizing. Gentlemen, you have 48 hours to decide if you want to work with me or against me. Choose carefully. He gathered his papers with deliberate calm. Because after that, anyone who's not with me will discover what a hostile takeover really looks like when I'm the one doing the taking. As he walked out, leaving behind a room full of stunned faces, Tae-Hyun realized something crucial. Protecting his family wasn't going to cost him his empire. It was going to make him more dangerous than ever before. Alpha Appa, Jae-won is cheating at the puzzle game. Jaemin's indignant voice carried from the living room where Tae-Hyun had left the triplets playing while he finished a conference call. I'm not cheating, I'm being efficient, came Jae-won's calm reply. There's a difference. Tae-Hyun emerged from his office to find his eldest son standing with his small fists clenched, his alpha pheromones already beginning to spike despite the suppressants. Even at 3 years old, Jaemin's natural dominance was impossible to miss. He commanded attention, expected obedience, and bristled at any challenge to his authority. What seems to be the problem? Tae-Hyun crouched down between his sons, consciously keeping his own alpha presence muted. Over the past 2 weeks, he'd learned that his protective instincts often overwhelmed the boys rather than comforted them. "He's looking at the box picture while he builds," Jae-min declared, pointing an accusatory finger at his brother. "That's not fair." Jae-won, meanwhile, had organized all the puzzle pieces by color and edge pattern, approaching the 1,000-piece challenge with the methodical precision of someone 3 times his age. The box shows the final image. Using available resources isn't cheating, it's strategic planning. "He talks like the grown-ups on your business shows," Jae-min complained to Tae-Hyun. "Make him stop being weird." From his corner of the room, Jae-suk looked up from the picture book he'd been quietly reading. "Jae-min, you're hurting Won-hyung's feelings. Look at his face." Tae-Hyun followed his youngest son's gaze and saw what he'd missed. Jae-won's carefully controlled expression couldn't quite hide the wounded look in his eyes. While his strategic mind was impressive, he was still just a child who wanted to play with his brothers. "You're right, Suka." Tae-Hyun's voice was gentle as he addressed his most perceptive son. "Won-ah, how about we make the game more interesting? You can be the strategy advisor, Min-ah can be the team leader, and Suka can be the... What would you like to be?" "The feelings checker," Jae-suk said seriously. "Someone needs to make sure everyone stays happy." The simple solution worked like magic. Jae-min straightened with pride at being designated leader. Jae-won's eyes lit up at having his skills valued rather than criticized, and Jae-suk beamed at having an official role that matched his natural empathy. "How do you do that?" Min-Jun's soft voice came from the kitchen doorway where he'd been watching the interaction. "Do what?" "See exactly what each of them needs." Min-Jun joined them on the living room floor, settling beside Tae-Hyun with a grace that still made the Alpha's heart skip. "I've been their only parent for 3 years, and sometimes I still get it wrong." Tae-Hyun watched Jae-min enthusiastically direct the puzzle construction, while Jae-won offered tactical advice, and Jae-suk monitored everyone's emotional state. "They're so different from each other. Min-ah has your protective instincts, but my need to lead. Won-ah has my analytical mind, but your patience. And Suka has your ability to read people, but uses it to heal instead of dominate," Min-Jun finished softly. "Alpha Appa, can you teach me to do business like you?" Jae-won looked up from the puzzle, his small face serious. "I want to learn about strategic planning and resource management." Tae-Hyun's chest tightened with unexpected emotion. "You're 3 years old, Won-ah. Don't you want to learn about toys? Or cartoons?" "Toys are for learning motor skills and spatial reasoning," Jae-won replied matter-of-factly. "I've already mastered age-appropriate developmental milestones. I want to advance to intermediate challenges." Min-Jun covered his laugh with a cough. "He's been like this since he could talk. I used to worry he was missing out on being a child." "I am being a child," Jae-won protested. "I'm just being an efficient one. Alpha Appa, when I grow up, can I work with people who are sad?" Jae-suk abandoned his book to climb into Tae-Hyun's lap. "Like how Omega Appa was sad when we lived in the small house, but you made him happy again?" The innocent question hit harder than any corporate attack. Tae-Hyun wrapped his arms around his youngest son, breathing in the sweet scent that was uniquely his. "You can be anything you want to be, Suka. All of you can. Even the boss of everything like you?" Jae-min asked, temporarily abandoning his puzzle leadership duties. "Especially that." Tae-Hyun's alpha voice carried absolute certainty. "Your Kang family. The world will bend to your will, not the other way around." Min-Jun's soft smile warmed something deep in Tae-Hyun's chest. For the first time since finding his family, the alpha felt like he was finally learning to be not just a protector, but a father. Before I tell you what happened to her, subscribe to Heartverse BL, and comment where you're watching from. An Omega at the shareholders' gala? How progressive of Kang Tae-Hyun. The voice carried just loud enough for Min-Jun to hear as he stood beside Tae-Hyun in the hotel's opulent ballroom, surrounded by Korea's business elite. Min-Jun's grip tightened on his champagne glass. The Omega suppressants he'd stopped taking weeks ago making every alpha's disdainful scent feel like a physical assault. Tae-Hyun's protective instincts flared immediately, his alpha presence darkening. But Min-Jun placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Let them talk," Min-Jun murmured, surprising himself with the steadiness of his voice. "Their opinions don't change what we've built." "Mrs. Kang." Director Yoon approached with his wife, both wearing expressions of barely concealed condescension. How refreshing to see Tae-Hyun embracing such modern family structures. "Though I do wonder how you find time to manage a household while he handles the complexities of corporate leadership." The dismissal was clear. "Stay in your lane, Omega." Handle domestic duties while the alphas manage real power. Min-Jun felt the familiar urge to shrink back, to defer to the authority these people represented. But then he thought of Jae-won asking intelligent questions about market strategies, of Jaemin's natural leadership, of Jae-suk's ability to read the emotional undercurrents in any room. Actually, Min-Jun replied smoothly, I've been reviewing your Busan development proposal. The environmental impact assessments seem incomplete, particularly regarding the coastal erosion projections. Director Yoon blinked in surprise. I'm sorry, the flood risk analysis assumes current weather patterns will remain stable, but climate data suggests increasing storm intensity over the next decade. You might want to consider elevated foundations and enhanced drainage systems. Min-Jun's voice grew stronger with each word. It could save millions in future remediation costs. Tae-Hyun's pride radiated through their bond as Director Yoon struggled to respond. The man had clearly expected polite small talk about children or household management, not detailed construction critiques from an Omega who'd spent 3 years working night shifts and raising alpha children. Where did you study environmental engineering? Mrs. Yoon asked, her tone sharp with suspicion. I didn't. Min-Jun met her gaze steadily. I learned by reading every contract, every report, every feasibility study that Tae-Hyun brought home. When you're responsible for 3 children's futures, you pay attention to how their world is being built. The conversation was interrupted by Tae-Hyun's assistant approaching with obvious urgency. Sir, we have a situation. Hansung Group just leaked details about our Indonesia expansion to the financial press. They're claiming we've been concealing environmental violations. Tae-Hyun's expression darkened. Impossible. Our compliance records are flawless. They are, Min-Jun interjected quietly. But the allegations don't have to be true to damage stock prices before your board vote next week. What are you suggesting? Director Yoon asked, his earlier dismissal replaced by reluctant attention. Min-Jun looked around the circle of powerful faces, all focused on him now. 3 months ago, he would have deferred to their expertise, convinced an Omega had nothing valuable to contribute. But watching his children grow confident in their alpha abilities had taught him something crucial. Strength wasn't about dominance. It was about protecting what mattered. Counter-narrative, he said simply. Don't just deny their claims. Overwhelm them with transparency. Release everything: environmental reports, safety records, community impact studies. Make it a showcase of corporate responsibility. That's actually brilliant, Tae-Hyun's assistant breathed. Turn their attack into a publicity opportunity. More than that, Min-Jun continued, his strategic mind fully engaged now. Invite international environmental groups to tour the facilities. Livestream the inspections. Challenge Hansung to do the same with their projects. The ballroom seemed to fade around them as the business discussion intensified. Min-Jun found himself at the center of rapid-fire questions about implementation timelines, media strategies, and risk assessments. His answers came easily, drawn from 3 years of absorbing business knowledge, while his children slept in months of quietly observing Tae-Hyun's corporate battles. How long have you been involved in strategic planning? Director Yoon's wife asked, her earlier condescension completely gone. Since the day I decided my children deserved a better world, Min-Jun replied. Everything else was just preparation. Later, as they drove home through Seoul's glittering streets, Tae-Hyun reached over to take Min-Jun's hand. You were magnificent tonight. I was terrified, Min-Jun admitted. But I kept thinking about the boys. About how they'll need to navigate this world someday. I can't teach them to be strong if I'm not willing to be strong myself. They're lucky to have you as their Omega parent. Min-Jun smiled, feeling something settle into place inside his chest. We're all lucky to have each other. You will renounce this farce immediately, or I will strip you of everything. Grandfather Kang's voice echoed through the traditional Hanok's main hall, his aged frame radiating the kind of authority that had built empires and destroyed lives. Tae-Hyun stood before the family patriarch, still in his business suit from the morning's board meeting, while Min-Jun and the triplets waited in the car outside. The contrast was stark, ancient Korean traditions embodied in carved wood and silk cushions, facing modern corporate power in Italian leather and steel watches. Everything, grandfather? You mean the money? The companies? The political connections? Tae-Hyun's voice was dangerously calm. Or are you threatening to take away my family again? That Omega is not your family. The old man's alpha presence filled the room like a physical weight, decades of dominance backing every word. He is a distraction, a weakness that your enemies will exploit until you have nothing left. Nothing left. Tae-Hyun laughed, but the sound held no warmth. For 3 years, I had everything you taught me to value. Money, respect, fear from my competitors. I was empty, grandfather. Completely hollow. Sentiment is a luxury we cannot afford. Grandfather Kang rose from his position on the floor, his traditional hanbok rustling as he moved to the window overlooking the courtyard. The Kang name has survived for 8 generations because we understand that personal desires must bow to family duty. And what has that brought us? A family so toxic that we drive away anything pure, anything good. Tae-Hyun followed his grandfather's gaze to where his children were visible through the car windows, their small faces pressed against the glass as they watched the traditional koi pond. Those children are your great-grandsons. The alpha heirs you've demanded for decades. Born from an unsuitable omega who tried to trap you with pregnancy. The patriarch's words were ice-cold dismissal. They can be legitimized later, given proper alpha training, but the omega must go. No. The word fell between them like a blade. Grandfather Kang turned sharply, his eyes blazing with fury at being contradicted. You forget yourself, boy. I made you everything you are. This empire, this power, it all flows from decisions I made before you were born. And I'm grateful for the foundation, Tae-Hyun replied steadily. But I'm building something different on top of it. Something that doesn't require destroying the people I love to maintain. Love. The old man spat the word like poison. Your father thought he loved your mother too. Look where that weakness led. Early death from stress, a son who thinks with his heart instead of his head. My parents died because they tried to meet impossible standards while hiding who they really were. Tae-Hyun's voice grew stronger, more certain. I won't do that to my children. I won't teach them that power means nothing if you can't protect what matters. Then you choose them over your birthright? The question hung in the air between 3 generations of Kang men. The patriarch who built through fear, the son who inherited through duty, and the father who would transform through love. I choose to redefine what my birthright means. Tae-Hyun straightened to his full height, his alpha presence finally matching his grandfather's. You taught me to be ruthless in business. I'm being ruthless about family. The board will never accept this. The shareholders, the political alliances, will adapt or be replaced. There was something new in Tae-Hyun's voice now, a certainty that came from finally understanding his own power. I've spent the last month proving that my personal happiness doesn't diminish my professional capabilities. If anything, it's made me more dangerous to my enemies. Through the window, they could see Jaemin organizing his brothers into some kind of formation while Min-Jun watched with patient amusement. The domestic scene was so normal, so far removed from corporate warfare and family politics. They make you weak, Grandfather Kang said quietly, but his conviction was wavering. They make me stronger. Tae-Hyun turned to face the man who had shaped his entire worldview. Because now I have something worth fighting for that isn't just abstract power or inherited obligation. And if I disown you? Strip you of the family name and resources. Then I'll build something new. The answer came without hesitation. I've learned everything you taught me about acquiring and holding power. The difference is, I'll use those skills to create instead of just dominate. Grandfather Kang studied his grandson for a long moment, seeing perhaps for the first time that the boy he'd molded had grown into something beyond his control. You really believe they're worth losing everything for? Tae-Hyun smiled, and for the first time in the conversation, it reached his eyes. Grandfather, they're not costing me everything. They are everything. Alpha Appa, the reporters want to know if you're worried about the quarterly projections. Jae-won looked up from his child-sized desk in Tae-Hyun's office, where he was seriously reviewing what appeared to be a coloring book, but was actually a simplified version of market analysis charts. What do you think I should tell them, Won-ah? Tae-Hyun asked, not looking up from his own reports as he indulged his 4-year-old son's fascination with business strategy. Tell them that smart planning beats worry every time. Jae-won's response was delivered with the gravity of a seasoned executive. Also, that our environmental initiatives are generating positive consumer sentiment, which translates to increased brand loyalty. From the corner office's seating area, Min-Jun laughed as he finished his own video conference call. Your son just gave better corporate messaging than half the PR firms in Seoul. Which son? Tae-Hyun grinned. Because Jaemin just convinced 3 board members to approve his playground renovation initiative for the office building, and Jae-suk talked our head of HR into implementing a company-wide mental health program. They're all terrifying in their own ways, Min-Jun said fondly, closing his laptop and stretching. The Omega had grown into his confidence over the past year, his natural intelligence now backed by formal business education and real-world success. His consulting firm specializing in sustainable development had secured contracts worth millions, earning respect that had nothing to do with being Tae-Hyun's mate. Omega Appa, we finished the charity presentation. Jae-min burst through the office doors with his typical dramatic flair, followed by a more measured Jae-suk, who was carefully carrying a poster board. The Children's Hospital Project? Min-Jun knelt down to their level, giving them his full attention. Let's see what you've prepared. Jae-suk stepped forward shyly. We researched what kids in hospitals need most. Not just medicine, but things that make them feel happy and safe. So we designed a program, Jae-min announced proudly. Art therapy rooms, play areas with soft things, and special gardens where families can visit together. And the best part, Jae-won added, consulting his meticulously organized notes, is that the initial investment will be offset by reduced average stay times, making it both humanitarian and fiscally responsible. Tae-Hyun and Min-Jun exchanged amazed glances over their children's heads. The triplets had taken their respective strengths, Jaemin's leadership, Jae-won's strategic thinking, and Jae-suk's empathy, and learned to work together as a formidable team. When did they become tiny business executives? Min-Jun murmured. When they realized they could change the world by combining alpha determination with omega compassion, Tae-Hyun replied softly. They're everything we could have been if we'd grown up together. The office intercom buzzed. Mr. Kang, the car is ready for your family's appointment. Appointment? Min-Jun looked puzzled. I don't remember scheduling anything. Trust me. Tae-Hyun's smile was mysterious as he gathered the boys. We have somewhere important to go. 20 minutes later, they stood in the gardens of the Shilla Hotel, the same venue where everything had changed a year ago. But now, instead of abandoned wedding chaos, the space hosted a different kind of celebration. The grand opening of the Kang Foundation's first children's wellness center, funded entirely by the profits from Tae-Hyun's rebuilt empire. You used the boys' hospital design, Min-Jun breathed, recognizing elements from their presentation in the beautiful facility before them. They had good ideas. Tae-Hyun wrapped his arms around his family as reporters captured the moment. Besides, what's the point of having power if you don't use it to build the world your children deserve? Jae-suk tugged on Min-Jun's suit jacket. Omega Appa, are you crying happy tears or sad tears? Definitely happy tears, sweetheart. Min-Jun wiped his eyes, his Omega heart overwhelmed by how far they'd all traveled from that terrified moment at a crosswalk. Alpha Appa, Jae-min said seriously, when we grow up, can we help you build more places like this? You already are helping, Tae-Hyun replied, his alpha pride radiating through their family bond. This is just the beginning. As the ceremony continued around them, the Kang family stood together in the space where their story had nearly ended, now watching their children plan a future built on love instead of fear. Tae-Hyun's empire was stronger than ever. Min-Jun's confidence had bloomed into independent success, and their triplets were growing into the kind of leaders who would reshape the world. No regrets? Min-Jun asked quietly, leaning into his alpha's warmth. Only one, Tae-Hyun murmured against his Omega's ear. That it took me 3 years to find my way home to you. You found us exactly when we were ready to be found, Min-Jun replied. Sometimes the best things are worth waiting for.